The truth is, Almera, we don't need a human touch anymore. Ollie handles it faster and cheaper.
That was the moment it hit me. Not just the end of my job, but the cruel irony of it all. I trained the AI that replaced me. I even gave it a name. Ollie. It began as a side project, just a quirky tool we could tinker with during lulls between client escalations. Let's teach Ollie how not to sound like a sociopath, we'd joke, while inputting variations of polite empathy. I helped design its decision tree, trained it with real client conversations, adjusted its tone to match human intuition. I was proud of it, like watching a toddler take its first steps. But that toddler didn't just learn to walk. It grew up and took my desk. Garrett Sloan, our newly minted CEO, was all about disruption. He looked like he came out of a Silicon Valley startup mold, crisp collar, all-bird shoes, and the unmistakable belief that code could solve everything. He introduced changes fast, flatten the hierarchy, automate the basics, replace emotion with efficiency. His slideshows had more buzzwords than substance, but the board loved him, numbers were up. To Garrett, I was legacy too human, too careful, too analog. 1 month before the blow, I stood in our quarterly meeting and presented a case study, how I saved $1 million client, Beacon North, from terminating their contract. Their lead had just lost a parent. Emotions were high. A billing hiccup turned into a perceived betrayal. I intervened, not with a discount, but with a handwritten card and a phone call. She cried, we talked. They stayed. We kept the account. She later said it was the card that did it. Garrett stared blankly, then asked, could we replicate that sentiment through Optivox scripting? I blinked. Not authentically. He smiled politely. But what's authentic if it gets the same result? I didn't answer. Maybe I should have. 2 weeks later, at precisely 7:08 a.m., my inbox pinged. The subject line read, Strategic Role, Realignments, Phase 2 Implementation. I knew what it was before I clicked. It wasn't addressed to me by name. No greeting, no thank you. Just a bullet-pointed list of departments being transitioned to AI. Customer experience, enterprise tier, was top of the list. That was me. That had always been me. At first I stared. I waited for a second email, a call. Anything I refreshed, nothing. After 20 minutes, I stood up, got dressed, and drove in. Anyway, the lobby smelled like lavender and ambition. The receptionist, Mia, looked up briefly, then looked down again. My badge still worked. That almost hurt more, like being allowed in to witness your own erasure. At my desk, everything was exactly where I left it. My mug ceramic chipped. Faded blue still had the lipstick stain from the day before. My mousepad was curled at one corner. On the main monitor, Ollie's newest version was glowing brightly, now with emotion. Sim 20 read the tagline. I let out a quiet, humorless laugh. I opened my desk drawer slowly. The weight of finality hung in the air. I wasn't angry, not yet, just stunned. The way the air feels when a room goes silent right before bad news. I placed each item into my tote bag deliberately. A framed photo of my team from last year's company. BBQ. A notebook filled with client insight logs I was no longer allowed to use. A small stress ball shaped like a brain, a gift from a now-departed intern. The card from Beacon North's manager. Thank you for making me feel human again. People passed behind me. No one stopped, not even Matt, who used to call me his work mom. Not even Sarah, who once cried to me about her rent being late. The silence wasn't cruel. It was worse, it was indifferent. I stood and looked around one last time. The office had changed. Everything was glass now. Quiet. Too quiet. The human noise had been optimized away. I walked toward Garrett's corner office. He was there, standing behind his desk, speaking into a headset. He didn't see me or pretended not to. I paused. Part of me wanted to knock to force the confrontation, ask why. But I already knew the answer, because code doesn't ask for raises, because algorithms don't take lunch breaks, because empathy isn't billable. I kept walking. The elevator dinged. As the doors opened, I saw my reflection, same soft cardigan, same tired eyes. But something behind those eyes looked different, like a door closing slowly behind me. Outside, the Texas morning was already warm. Spring was shifting into summer. The streets buzzed with life, but I felt like I was on the other side of a glass wall. I walked past our old cafe, the one I used to meet clients at, past the bus stop, where I gave directions to a lost intern. Past the world I thought I'd helped build. Each step felt like unpeeling. By the time I reached the end of the block, I was no longer an employee, no longer a manager, just Almira, a woman with a tote full of memories and a gut full of ache. And yet, as I rounded the corner, something inside me hardened. I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. They may have replaced me on paper, but paper couldn't feel. Paper couldn't listen. Paper couldn't fix what machines would break. I didn't cry, not yet. But something told me this wasn't the end of my story. The first few mornings after I left SynTech felt like trying to breathe underwater. My body moved, made coffee read the news, but inside everything was static. There was no inbox to check, no dashboard to monitor, no Slack messages waiting for answers. My name was wiped off the system within a day. My corporate identity gone in a blink, but bills remained. Austin rent didn't pause for heartbreak. I updated my resume, sent out applications, checked job boards like clockwork, but the rejections came fast, too. Experienced, too niche, too expensive, or worse, no reply at all. I sat for hours trying to rewrite my experience to look leaner, less human, more data-driven. I began to doubt not only my skills, but my voice had everything I learned become irrelevant overnight. On the fourth day of my now unplanned sabbatical, I wandered into a small cafe near my apartment. The roost I'd passed by, it countless times, but never went in. It didn't look like a place for business deals. No QR codes, no neon signs, just a chalkboard menu and the faint smell of cinnamon and old wood. Inside it felt like a different world. Mismatched chairs, stained glass lamps, customers reading paperbacks instead of scrolling phones. There were no laptops in sight, just quiet conversation and the comforting hiss of steamed milk. And behind the counter stood a woman in her early 60s tying her silver hair into a knot, wiping the espresso machine with the precision of a surgeon. "You knew?" she asked, eyes sharp but not unkind. "First time here," I said. I stopped myself, I didn't want to say Blue Cup, the ultra-modern coffee chain that catered to tech execs with voice-activated ordering. It sounded ridiculous now. The woman raised an eyebrow. "Well, we're slower, but we smile." I smiled back. "That's a start." She introduced herself as Marion within. In 10 minutes, we were chatting like old friends. I told her I'd been let go skimming over the humiliating details. She nodded slowly, as if she already knew. "People think it's the job they lose," she said, "but really, it's the version of themselves that job let them believe in." I stayed for an hour. Then, too, I helped carry some dishes back to the kitchen without being asked. The next morning, I came back and she handed me an apron. "No pay yet," she said, "but the coffee's free and you'll sleep better if you're tired." And just like that, I started working at the Roost. It wasn't glamorous. I scrubbed counters, restocked sugar jars, learned how to steam milk without burning it. I wiped down tables sticky with syrup and mopped floors that creaked under my feet. But it was real, and every day my hands got steadier. The regulars came in slowly. Mr. Tilley, the retired chemist who read the paper out loud to himself. Janine, the florist from next door, who always asked for extra nutmeg. I began to remember their preferences, their names, their stories. It felt like building something solid again, one smile at a time. After a week, Marion handed me a small envelope with $50 and a note that read, "You're not temporary," I cried in the storeroom. One afternoon, I saw a familiar face. It was Eli, one of the junior analysts from SynTech. He came in wearing AirPods, still dressed in that regulation minimalist wardrobe, grey blazer, white sneakers, tired eyes. He didn't recognize me. Not at first. I brought his drink to the table. He looked up, blinked Almira. "Hi," I said, smiling gently. His face flushed. I I didn't know you worked here. Neither did I said, setting down the cup. Turns out life likes plot twists. He laughed awkwardly. They talk about you sometimes. I didn't flinch, but my grip on the tray tightened. Do they? Yeah, especially after that client fallout last week. OptivoX dropped the ball. Big time. The AI routed a VIP complaint to a bot loop and lost the account. I raised an eyebrow. Really? He lowered his voice. Garrett's freaking out. Said we need hybrid empathy pathways. Whatever that means, I didn't say anything, just nodded and walked back to the counter. But inside, something shifted, a small, steady pulse. That night, I stayed after closing. The cafe was quiet, the chairs turned upside down on tables, the last scent of cinnamon fading. Marion poured 2 mugs of chai and slid one toward me. You look like a woman who's thinking again, she said. I'm remembering, I replied. She sipped slowly. That can be dangerous or necessary. She studied me over the rim of her mug. Do you want to go back, I thought for a moment. I don't know. But I want to be ready if they come to me. Marion chuckled. Make them come, and don't go cheap. We sat in silence for a while. There was something sacred in it. The kind of silence that doesn't ask questions, but still answers something deep inside you. I closed my eyes briefly. For the first time in weeks, I felt grounded. Later that night in my apartment, lit by the soft glow of a second-hand desk lamp, I opened the notebook I thought I'd never use again. The one with client patterns, escalation, anomalies, voice tone, shifts by industry, handwritten notes in ink, slightly smudged from too much coffee and not enough sleep. I ran my fingers over the pages and memories poured in, not just of names and companies, but of voices, tensions, small victories, people. I wasn't doing it for them, I was doing it for me. Because somewhere deep down, I knew the story wasn't over, and I wanted to be the one writing the next chapter 3 months. That's how long it took for Syntech's perfect AI rollout to crack. It started with whispers first from Eli, then from another old colleague who wandered into the roost for a decaf almond latte and left looking uncomfortable after recognizing me. They always fumbled with small talk like seeing me outside the office shattered some illusion of my professional permanence. You know that VIP escalation flow? You designed, one of them had asked, eyes darting toward the floor. Ollie fumbled it hard. I said nothing, just offered them a refill on their coffee. But inside, I filed every word away. Apparently Beacon North. The very client I once saved with a handwritten card had hit a system bug. Their feedback flagged a fulfillment issue, which OptivoX categorized as non-urgent thanks to some data anomaly in the decision tree. The AI sent 3 auto-replies. The 4th message came from Julian Crane himself, the CEO of Beacon North. Do I have to scream into the void to talk to a human? That email went viral internally. Then it leaked. Someone from the client side posted it on LinkedIn tech forums, picked it up. Suddenly, Syntech's proud AI-first customer success model was the subject of ridicule. Memes, comment threads, "Wadane, Kinnell Wait" started trending. And just like that, Garrett Sloan wasn't the golden boy anymore. The message from him came on a rainy Tuesday morning. I was slicing lemons for hot toddies when my phone vibrated in my apron pocket. Garrett Sloan. Urgent. Need to talk. In person. Today I stared at it for a long moment, not because I didn't expect it deep down, I had, but because the tone was unfamiliar. There was no bullet-pointed agenda, no automated calendar link, just 5 abrupt words. I slid the phone into my pocket and went back to slicing. He showed up that afternoon. It was almost surreal seeing him in this space. Garrett always belonged in boardrooms and product launches, not among chipped teacups and handwritten specials on chalkboards. He looked thinner than I remembered, like stress had been chewing at him. Marion gave him the kind of look reserved for politicians and overdue landlords. You here for a chai or something heavier? She asked. I'm here for her, he said, nodding toward me. I was wiping down the espresso machine. I didn't flinch, just folded the towel and turned around. Elmira, he said, trying to smile. Can we talk? I gestured to a quiet table in the corner, the one under the stained glass lamp shaped like a rooster. He sat. I sat. Marion hovered long enough to make it known she was watching, then retreated behind the counter. Garrett leaned in. "We need you back." There it was, just like that. No build-up, no apology, just desperation dressed in designer panic. I tilted my head. "You replaced me with code. I know you said empathy could be automated." He sighed. "I was wrong. I let that silence stretch. Let him feel how heavy the moment could be without an algorithm to summarize it." "What do you need, Garrett?" I asked finally. "Beacon North's gone. 2 more big clients are threatening to walk. OptivoX can't handle the nuance. We've tried patching the language model redirecting complaints. It just made it worse. The board wants a fix. A real one. And I'm the fix." He didn't deny it. For a moment, I looked at him. Not the CEO, but the man. He was unraveling. The Polish was still there, but dulled. His eyes were hollow with sleepless nights and things he couldn't delegate. "I can't promise you anything." "Long term," he said. "But if you come back, just consult. Even we can stabilize." I leaned back. "Why now?" "Because everything that made you inefficient turned out to be what people trusted. You remembered birthdays. You picked up subtext. You followed up when no one asked you to. And you thought AI could mimic that." He nodded barely. "I don't want to replace OptivoX," I said, "but I won't be a patch for it either." He swallowed hard. "What do you want?" Now we were getting somewhere. I pulled out my phone and tapped open a note I'd been curating for weeks. It wasn't a resume. It was a vision. I want to lead a human-first escalation division. Independent from your AI protocol, I choose the team, I report to the board, not you. And I want full veto power when it comes to major accounts. Garrett blinked. "That's a lot. You don't get half measures anymore. Garrett, you want the heart back in your company. You let it beat without asking permission." He stared at the tabletop for a long time, then finally he nodded. "Deal." As he stood to leave, Marion appeared at his side with a to-go cup. "House blend," she said flatly. "You looked like you could use something real." He took it, murmured a thank you, and stepped out into the rain. I stood behind the counter again, watching droplets race down the window pane. Something inside me shifted, not just satisfaction, not even vindication, control. For the first time in months, I had it back. That night, I texted Julian Crane. "Hey, it's Elmira. Heard you had a rough time. Mind if I call tomorrow? No bots, just me." He responded 3 minutes later. "I was hoping you would. I didn't sleep the night before the meeting. It wasn't nerves, it was clarity. Like my brain had clicked into a sharper version of itself, one I hadn't known since my early days at Syntech. Except now I wasn't here to impress. I was here to negotiate. On my terms, Garrett had arranged for a 900 a.m. meeting at the company's downtown office. The place had changed since I left. New logo, new layout, more AI-powered glass walls and fewer chairs. The human footprint had been sanitized away. Even the front desk had been replaced with a motion-activated kiosk. It took me a full minute to realize there was no receptionist. Figures. I checked in and was immediately greeted by a robotic voice. "Elmira Quinn, welcome. Please proceed to conference room Delta." As I walked through the hall, I passed by former colleagues. Some looked surprised, others avoided my eyes entirely. There was something else to uncertainty, not the smug confidence I remembered. They were navigating a ship whose compass had just been shattered. Garrett stood by the conference room door, tapping on his tablet. He looked tired, or maybe just human for once. "Elmira," he said, gesturing me inside. I nodded once and entered. The room was sleek and cold, a long table surrounded by ergonomic chairs. No one seemed comfortable in. 3 others joined us. Beth from Legal, Darren from HR, and Marcus, the new head of AI operations. I recognized none of them from my time there. New blood, clean slates. We sat. Garrett opened his laptop. "Let's go ahead and get started." I raised a hand. "Before we begin, I need to be clear. I'm not here for reinstatement. I'm here with an offer." Darren blinked. Thought we were bringing you back as a consultant. No, I said, calm but firm. You're not bringing me back. I'm stepping in with full conditions. The room shifted. Beth leaned forward, intrigued. Garrett remained still. I placed my folder on the table and opened it. Inside was a printed outline. Not a resume, not a proposal, but a framework. I'm proposing the creation of a new division, Human First Response, a standalone unit for high-value customer relations that operates independently from your AI triage systems. It will be staffed by real people, trained, empowered, and accountable. Marcus frowned. So, you want to go backwards? I turned to him. No, I want to go forward with balance. Your AI is fast, sure, but it lacks intuition, subtlety, and memory tied to meaning. You've lost 3 major clients to those gaps. My division would exist to patch those failures before they happen. Beth scribbled something in her notebook. Darren spoke next. What exactly are your terms? I took a deep breath. 1. I choose my team, from inside or outside, no interference. 2. I report directly to the board, not to Garrett, not to Marcus. This has to function without corporate bottlenecks. 3. I want final say on client recovery strategies involving contracts over $2 million, no AI override. Garrett finally shifted. That's a lot of authority. It's what it takes to clean up the mess, I said evenly. He studied me. And if I say no, then I walk, I said, rising. And when the next client posts another viral takedown, I won't be near a phone. When you call. Beth looked at Garrett, then at me. Give us a moment. I stepped out of the room, closed the door behind me, and leaned against the wall. My heart thudded not from fear, but from power. This wasn't just about returning. It was about rebalancing, about restoring the value of what had been thrown out so carelessly. 10 minutes passed. Then the door opened. Garrett gestured for me to come back in. Everyone looked a little more composed. Beth folded her hands. We accept your terms. Provisionally. A 6-month pilot program. If results meet board benchmarks, the role and division become permanent. I nodded. Accepted. Garrett looked me in the eye for the first time that day. Welcome back. I didn't smile. I'm not back. I'm building something new. After the meeting, I didn't go straight home. I walked 3 blocks to the Roost. Marion was behind the counter, stacking biscotti into a glass jar. When she saw me, she didn't ask. She just poured 2 mugs of coffee and slid one toward me. Well, she asked. I didn't just go back, I said. I took a piece of it with me, she grinned. Told you not to go cheap. We clinked mugs. Later that night, as I sat on my small apartment couch with my laptop open, I began drafting emails. Not to friends, not to recruiters, to the people I wanted on my team. Former colleagues, thoughtful listeners, quiet problem solvers, the ones the company had overlooked or let go when efficiency became more important than connection. I was building an army. Not of algorithms, but of humans. The first day back didn't feel like a homecoming. It felt like walking into someone else's house and realizing your name was still on the deed, but all the furniture had been replaced. I didn't have a title. I didn't have a team in the org chart. What I had was a cold, unused conference room, a modest budget, and a chance to prove that empathy wasn't obsolete. I called it the listening room. No dashboards, no KPI screens, just whiteboards, notebooks, markers, and chairs that didn't look like they belonged in a tech showroom. It wasn't a command center. It was a place to listen, observe, and understand, not just respond. I sent out 6 invitations. 4 showed up. 2 of them were people I'd worked with. 1 had been quietly let go months before me. The other was a UX researcher on the verge of quitting. The 3rd was an intern I once mentored, now jobless and disillusioned. The 4th was Eliza, an analyst with a photographic memory and a soul like velvet. We sat together for an hour before speaking. No one knew what to say at first. Then I opened my notebook. Our first case wasn't handed to us. It was bleeding in plain sight, Beacon North. My old client hadn't cancelled officially, but their legal team stopped replying to contract renewal threads. They pulled out of quarterly reviews. They started ghosting marketing partnerships. The writing was on the wall in font size 72. Worse, the AI logs showed multiple failed handoffs. Their primary complaint had been routed through 4 different escalation branches and resolved technically, but none of those resolutions involved a human. They'd been screaming into a void and getting polite silence back. I pulled every transcript, every automation summary, every ticket metadata trail. The AI had replied with textbook-perfect syntax. "We understand your concern. Your issue is being addressed. Per our records, the matter has been resolved." But no one had asked Julian Crane how it felt to have a multi-million-dollar partnership dismissed by macros. We printed the worst of it, taped them to the walls of the listening room. It looked like a crime scene of indifference. Eliza ran her finger along one highlighted passage. "It's not that the AI didn't understand," she said softly. "It's that it didn't care." That became our rallying cry. We built a recovery plan. No templates, no bots, just names, numbers, and a simple opening line. We read everything, and we're here to make it right. Not with policy, but with presence. Some customers hung up, some shouted, but some stayed on the line. And when they did, we didn't rush, we asked questions. We repeated back what they said, not because it was a tactic, but because we meant it. I personally called Julian. The first time he let it ring. The second voicemail. The third time he picked up, long pause. Then, "Is this a stunt?" "No," I said. "It's me. They replaced you with a flowchart. I know you're calling for them. I'm calling for the relationship we built. And maybe for what comes after it." Another pause. Then, "Go on." We spoke for 47 minutes. He didn't yell. He didn't forgive. But at the end, he said, 7 days. Show me I'm not wasting my time. And we got to work. We redrew the customer journey from scratch, not through software, but by mapping what the client felt at every step. We restructured our internal priority flags, not by dollar value, but by emotional heat. We called vendors. We called former account managers. We even called one of Julian's junior team members who had resigned after being ghosted. Eliza designed a new empathy-based escalation protocol that required zero AI involvement for priority clients. And for the first time in years, the customer support floor didn't feel like a call center. It felt like triage, human, urgent, alive. On day 6, Beacon North's general counsel replied to our manual outreach. "We've decided to delay final contract termination until Q3. Continue as proposed. That was corporate for, you bought yourselves time. But Julian..." He didn't send a legal memo. He texted me. It feels like someone finally answered the phone. Garrett called me to his office the next day. His eyes were tired but not dead like before. "You saved the account," he said. "We reminded them they mattered," I replied. He nodded slowly. "And you did it without any AI." I smiled. "I used something better. People who gave a damn." He leaned back, looking around his office like he didn't recognize it anymore. "You were right, Elmira. I didn't say thank you, I just stood. You'll need to make space," I said. "For what?" "For more of us." Later that evening, I found 5 handwritten notes on the table in the listening room. They weren't from marketing, not even from Garrett. They were from Beacon North's team. 5 names I hadn't spoken to directly. Each note had one sentence. Mine said, "Thank you for being the first real voice we heard in months." The morning started like most others. Coffee quiet, the hum of the city waking up around me, but something felt unfinished, like a note in a song that hadn't resolved. It had been 3 weeks since Beacon North renewed their contract. 3 weeks since the board made the human first response team permanent. 3 weeks since Syntech began quietly restructuring the AI dependency out of its higher stakes operations. We'd earned breathing room, but peace not quite. Because now came the question everyone was afraid to ask. What do we do with the AI? Garrett scheduled a meeting labeled simply OptiveOX redeployment proposal. I didn't RSVP. Instead, I showed up unannounced. The meeting was full of clean suits and carefully worded slides. Marcus, the head of AI Ops, was walking the group through new language models, improved nuance, calibration, compassion variables, and something called relational simulation. Layer 3-1. He was halfway through explaining how the new model could mimic apology tone better than 90% of humans. When I raised my hand, Marcus, I said calmly, "What does it do when someone's father dies and they don't want a refund? They just want someone to remember." He blinked. "Hey, I'm not sure that scenario would trigger a refund protocol." "Exactly." The room went quiet. I stood. "I'm not here to stop your AI. Use it. Improve it. Let it handle logistics. But if you put it in the space where trust lives, it will fail again." Marcus frowned. "With enough training, empathy isn't a line of code. It's a line we choose to cross every time we listen." "You can't train that. You have to be that." Garrett was silent, but he was listening. That evening, I stayed late in the listening room. Everyone else had gone home. A spring thunderstorm rolled over Austin. I turned off the lights and stared at the transcript wall, now faded, curling slightly at the corners. I walked up to the very first printout, the one that started it all. It was a standard AI response. "We regret the inconvenience. Your case has been resolved." But under the text, someone had once scribbled a comment during testing, a note I hadn't seen the first time, maybe from an intern. Maybe from me. It said, "Sounds perfect, feels empty." That was the line of code they missed. 2 days later, Garrett invited me to the executive leadership off-site. I declined. Instead, I held a workshop for 30 junior employees. The ones who didn't know if they mattered, I showed them not how to use tools, but how to be present. We did live empathy simulations, listened to recordings, practiced silence. One rep cried when a mock client talked about losing her cat. We didn't stop him. "Let them feel it," I said. "Then respond as if they were your mother." A week after that, Garrett called me to his office one last time. "I have a proposition," he said, "Co-Chief Experience Officer. You'd lead human first. I'd support you. Officially." I paused. "You want to institutionalize what I started. I want to protect it with your name on it." It was tempting, it was validating. It was everything I once thought I wanted, but I shook my head. "I don't need the title," I said. "What I need is for every person you hire from this point on to know what it means to be real. And that has to come from you, not a policy." He nodded slowly. "Then let me write a different offer." "No," I said, "just rewrite the culture." I left the building without a contract, but I carried something more permanent. People started calling us, the real team clients, asked to speak with a human like Almira new hires, shadowed us, not for metrics, but for mindset. Somewhere along the way, we'd become more than a division. We'd become the conscience. It didn't make headlines. No one wrote case studies, but that was the point. Not everything needs to scale. Some things just need to be remembered, like how it feels to be heard. Technology can replicate speed, precision, and even politeness, but it can't replicate presence. In a world obsessed with automation, we must remember that real trust comes from being heard, not just being answered. Almira's journey reminds us that empathy isn't a soft skill. It's a strategic strength. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can be in a room full of machines is human. And no matter how advanced the system, there will always be a line of code. It can't write the one that feels